Hi, welcome. In this video, I want to take a couple minutes to talk about the language of the method. And again, this aligns with the role of influence in terms of changing perceptions of dogs the right way. Now, here's the thing about force. Okay, I understand there's certain terms that are used in the dog training world to attempt to define what influence is. And again, a term you're going to hear is forcing a dog, compulsion training. You're going to hear this coming from the mainstream dog training community. However, okay, again, understand I talk about the problem out of the starting gate. Okay, this whole thing about motivating dogs without considering why that would be a problem based on the current state of the relationship. Understand that's absolutely critical information to understand why it is that so many dog owners encounter a counterfeit picture. Dogs that are responding, looks really good, feels really good, but it's not good. Okay, the relationship isn't actually changing. Okay, this is so common. But again, in terms of understand there's so much confusion over the role of influence. Again, so when you see me interacting with dogs, one would assume, okay, that immediately it's going to be over the top. Or again, this is the other thing I talk a lot about, the ability to reconcile, okay, to be able to properly interpret the responses of dogs based on the role of influence. This is where, again, it can be very challenging, okay, when you see certain reactions of dogs, especially when you're interacting with dogs that have gained a higher level of control. Okay, this is where you're going to see higher reactions. Okay, but here's the thing to really consider, to think about in terms of the role of influence. Okay, and again, this plays into interactions that will speak the right language as I describe it. Again, when I talk about language, I talk about interactions that are intentional, predictable. So as I'm moving, okay, I'm moving the same way all the time. Okay, so dogs, what happens, dogs interpret that, they understand that, they come into agreement, okay, with it. Okay, so the agreeableness part of it. But again, understand that the interplay, okay, of these interactions based again on influence being part of it, you're going to see certain reactions from dogs anyway. Okay, because again, the dogs that I'm helping are dogs that have already gained a level of control. So I'm there for a reason. Okay, and again, what's really helpful, again, I encourage people looking at my videos to really think about this. Think about the parenting example. I talk about that a lot when I sit down with dog owners to help them understand, why you want to interact the way that I show versus, using motivating agents. Okay, what's very common is, again, using treats, right? And again, be very careful, be very aware that that's a deception. Okay, is that when you do that, you have to consider the current state of the relationship. And again, the parenting example, think about if you were to do that with an already selfish child. If you did that, would that set up a problem? Absolutely, because you can get responses. Okay, that's there's no doubt about that. You can generate responses, but do those responses actually mean that perceptions are changing? See, that's the problem, is that when trainers or dog owners are looking at responses, okay, there's nothing to actually establish, because influence is now no longer part of the equation through a interaction-based approach. There's nothing to establish whether you can trust those responses. And understand that, and then take this further. Think about the contrast. Think about, okay, well, when I get my dog on the leash, and I bring a dog under a reasonable level of control, okay, and we'll talk about the reasonableness of things, to be able to properly reconcile what's happening. Then you're going to get a level of challenge start to rise up again and say, well, there's a contrast here. Why is it that when I get the dog on the leash and I'm connected that way and I'm interacting in a way that is reasonable, in a way that dog understands, why is it now my dog is getting challenging? Well, then now link that up, okay, to your behavioral problem. See, that's the thing about connecting dogs properly versus, okay, when I use treats and man, that feels really good, the dog's moving around, and then but things, when I leave the training environment, things aren't getting better. I understand that's so common. When I talk to dog owners, they say, I will ask, not ask in terms of gathering names or anything like this. I say, well, have you had prior training? I already know the prior training, what that means, okay? you know, I'm just kind of interested to know what they've, you know, what they've done. I say, oh yeah, I've been here. And I say, well, what was the, you know, what did they use? Well, treats, and, you know, okay, well, but, you know, seem really good, but now, you know, we're still having major problems. Well, see, that's a common theme. I encounter that all the time. But that's, again, think about what I'm saying though. Like, really frame this up. So here's the thing: you don't even have to be a dog owner. You don't even have to have a dog to get what I'm saying. Okay, sometimes having a dog actually gets in the way, because it's the emotional part of this can get in the way of, you know, being able to apply critical thinking. So, but all to say, again, I talk about this whole thing about force. Understand the issue here is a couple things going on. Is, you know, out of the starting gate, you know, the absence of influence, okay? And that's critical. It has to be part of the equation. I mean, understand that training itself, once you're encountering a relationship problem, it's not a learning-based exercise, or it should not be a learning-based exercise. You need to approach it just like the parenting example, as an intervention. Think about, you know, a parent who's dealing with a relationship problem with a child that's become very selfish. I mean, if you just think about that and then ask the questions and look at the parallels here, you're going to see them. It's clear. I mean, it's amazing actually how this lines up to the parenting example. And even with the disconnected picture through certain responses that way, if you're generating responses to, you know, motivating a dog through using certain agents. And here's the depth of it. I mean, this is something that I'll get into more in my videos as I continue to put out information, but, you know, based again on what you've already signed. It's like signing a contract, just like a parent through a parenting style has signed a contract. Certain expectation has been set in motion, so you can get responses without even a overt motivator, and you're still have set in motion certain responses that aren't even lining up. Because again, understand it's critical that, you know, influence needs to be part of the equation. But again, in terms of, you know, beyond, again, this is where I get into this thing about, okay, what does influence mean? Does it take the form of a correction? No, okay, not that way. Okay, understand that. This is why I talk about, say, I'm not a balanced trainer. I'm dialed in different. Okay, it's a deeper, more intentional way. It doesn't mean it's more complicated. Understand that when you start to, you know, align yourself with this system, okay, it'll make sense very quickly. Okay, because there's things you can grab onto. It's different than certain kind of generalizations. People talk about leadership. Well, what does that really mean exactly? You know, what does leadership mean? Okay, what beyond just the idea of it? See, that's the thing. It's like getting into the nuts and bolts of a method. So again, when I talk about force, understand that don't, you know, and this is a big problem, when trainers are attempting to describe what force is, you know, they're not thinking, okay, beyond just a idea of motivating dogs the way they're doing it. Right? They're completely hardwired into this idea that training's a learning-based exercise. They're motivating dogs the way I described as a problem, and so their idea of force is totally different, or influence is different, because it's not a interaction-based approach. See, that makes all the difference in the world. So, all to say, there, in terms of the imagery of something, understand that because this idea is so popular, when I talk about, you know, influence and its role, how it aligns through a method, people will automatically assume certain things that aren't true. But I would encourage anyone watching my videos, just take the time, go and watch. I have lots of videos on my, especially my board and trains. Okay, so if you watch my board and train videos, there's like 14 days where I go through day after day and I talk through all of it. And on top of that, I have member area option. Like, anyone can be a member. It just means that in terms of that option, it has additional video content. So, you know, even more videos available through my member area. It's a one-time payment, and that way you can really go through and take your time. So if you're a dog owner, understand this information is critical, because understand that in terms of the blame shifting that's going on in the dog training world, it's a package deal. Understand it goes right along with this idea. It's so common to blame dogs when the picture doesn't line up, versus this idea, how it's applied, how people are motivating dogs that way out of the starting gate. So, but there's so much to talk about. I'm going to put lots of videos talking through this in very simple ways to help people understand. But again, my encouragement is really think about your role. Okay, the role of influence is not over the top. The reactions, of course, you got to reconcile those. The language of the method, okay, the interactions themselves, the dog comes into agreement with them because they make sense. I'm moving the same way all the time. If you watch my videos, you'll see, and I'm talking through it. So again, I'd really challenge people to really take the time, watch the videos. If you have questions, I have a consult option where you can, engage in terms of online. The consult is a 1 hour, back and forth on whatever it could be FaceTime or Skype. A very reasonable rate I offer for that, and I'm able to answer all your questions. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that. If you're looking at my videos and you're like saying, well, I still got some questions here to sort out, because again, you want to make sure that you're doing it right, okay? Especially if you're dealing with dogs that have gained a high level of control, okay? You want to make sure you have the proper guidance, information, and be able to do it the right way in terms of keeping the level of agreeableness at a very, very high level and the level of challenge at the lowest level possible. Thanks for watching.